Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for today. Just myself running the session with you today. So we've got no one in the background answering questions, just myself. I'll be picking those up. Quite a small session, not that many people registered. So hopefully it'll give me a good chance to run a few extra demos here and there if requested. Keep your questions coming. I'll tell you more about that in just a moment. Today, obviously, we're looking at quotations in Sage 50 accounts. If you are familiar with invoicing or sales order processing, then this should be an absolute should be very easy for you to adapt. It's just that extra step in front of either the orders or the invoicing process, but pretty much the same as far as entering them is concerned. Now, I'm expecting this session to last a maximum of 45 minutes. I don't envisage it going beyond that. But we'll see how many questions we get. Hopefully I'll be able to pick those up as we run through. Now, for those of you that may not have attended a webinar before, just a very quick little bit of housekeeping for you all. So you don't need a microphone for these sessions. Doesn't look like anyone's enabled one either, so that's great. If you do have one going forward, well, you'll just find if you enable it, it'll be muted automatically. So it means that you can't verbally speak to us, but you will still be able to pop your questions into the questions panel for me. You can't currently see that. All you need to do is just click that little icon on your toolbar, the one that looks like the speech bubble containing the question mark. Give that a click. It'll expand the panel. You'll get the box in the bottom right-hand corner, and then you'll be able to start typing any comments or questions. As I mentioned, it's just myself today, so do bear with me here and there, and I'll try my best to pick as many of those up as I can. If anyone wants a copy of today's slides as well, I've made those available. So again, there's a little link on your toolbar, the one that looks like the bit of paper with a folded corner. Give that a click and it'll give you the opportunity to download a copy of those if needed. It is literally just a copy of the slides that we're using today. Loads of detailed information available within our help center, and I always refer you to that because that's where you'll always find the most up-to-date information as well. Right, so that's the little bit of housekeeping. We'll get started. As usual, you will receive a follow-up email after the session. I think we got that scheduled in for 2 hours after today's session, with it being a new one. Gives me a chance to upload the recording and make sure everything's working fine before that gets sent out. So you get that email. It'll include a number of links. One will be to our webinar registration page. So if you want to register for any other sessions, please do so. And the other will take you across to our recordings, and I'll try and include a specific link to the recording of this session, just in case you need a bit of a recap. Anyway, we'll get started. Let's have a look at what I'm going to cover in this session today. So a little bit of background to start with. I then want to quickly look at the quotation process, and this is where it does vary between different levels of the software. So I'll explain that. We'll run through the scenarios as well. I want to touch on defaults, give you an idea of some of the options that you've got available to you. We'll then obviously run through the basics of creating a quote and following that through. We're going to touch on quick print, and the email options. And then just at the end, just mention a little bit about additional support. And also I will then pick up any questions that we might have outstanding, but I will try and pick them up as we're going through the session today. So keep them coming. As I say, I'll try my best to answer as many as I can. Right, so a little bit of background first of all, just in case anyone's not really been involved with a quotation process before. So basically, a quote is it's a statement of the current price for the service or goods that are being requested. Now, it mentions the current price there, but although when you enter a quote, it will bring through the current price for the goods that you've entered, you will still be able to override that. So if you want to quote a special price, you can do that. A quote will usually be valid for a period of time. So you would normally indicate the length of time that you would honor that quote for. Now that could be anything, for example, 30 days from the point of creation. But you can offer your own terms, and that can vary as well between different customers. I suppose it'll depend on the goods or services requested. Quotes will then be converted into an invoice or an order automatically when you flag them as being won. So again, that's a nice simple process, that one. So it'll automatically feed it either into the invoice list or the orders list when you flag it. Now, quotes are available in all levels of the software, so it doesn't matter whether you're on the essentials level, the standard level, or the professional level of Sage 50 accounts, you will have the quotations option available to you. However, the options within the quotations area will differ slightly, and I'll try and highlight those along the way. Now, if you're not sure what level of the software you're on, easiest option is to go into Help within your software and then About. In fact, I'll quickly show you that one. Let me just share my screen. So if I pop into Help and then About, it's going to load the screen. And in the middle here of this license information, in the variant, it will tell you. So that's either going to say Sage 50 Cloud Accounts Essentials, just Sage 50 Cloud Accounts if it's a standard edition, or it'll end in the word Professional. So that's how you would find that. Right, let's pop back to the slides. So as I say, I will point out the differences as we're working through the various scenarios. Now, the quotation process itself, and this is where it differs, is very simple. You will enter the quotation, and then you will convert it either to a sales order when you flag it as 1, or it will convert to an invoice if you flag it as 1. Now, the option to convert it to a sales order is only available if you're on the professional level. It's only the professional level of the software that has the sales order option. So if you're on Essentials or Standard, it will automatically convert to an invoice, and then the invoicing process beyond that is just as normal. You update it to the ledgers to impact on the customer's account, etc. So it's one of those options that you have if you're on the professional level, and I'll show you where this option is in just a moment as we start running through the process. Now, before we run through the process and entering it, I just want to quickly pick up on the default options, and I'll show you some of these within the software in just a moment. So there are some defaults relating to quotations, and you'll find them within settings, the settings menu, and then invoice and order defaults. Or if you're on the essentials level, it'll just be called invoice defaults. So settings, invoice defaults. First of all, you'll get the option to convert your quotes to, which is a professional only option. We'll look at that in just a second. The other one to quickly mention is the numbering. So on the options tab, you've got the numbering sequence. So let me just share my screen and we'll start working through a few demos. And find the right button. There we go. All right. So I'm going to start first of all by going into settings at the top. And then obviously I've got mine set up as the professional level. So I'm going to choose invoice and order defaults. So if you're on the professional level, the first option to think about is when you enter a quote and you flag it as 1, do you want that to create a sales order, or do you want it to convert automatically into an invoice? So do you want that extra step if you're on the professional level where maybe you need to reserve stock for an item, for instance, in which case you would normally use the sales orders option. Now, for invoices and sales orders, there are separate recorded webinars if you're trying to find out more about those. So do watch those recordings, links included on the follow-up email. Now, what I'm going to do in today's session is I'm going to choose invoices so that it's applicable to all levels of the software. The way that you enter a quotation, though, it doesn't differ depending on these options. So it's going to look the same no matter what. So I'll just leave it set to invoices. The only other thing really to consider in here is on options, and it's to do with the numbering sequence. Now you'll see on here, there's not specifically a numbering sequence available for quotations. So if I've got on this tab, So if I've got convert quotes to invoices, when you generate a new quotation and save it, it will look at the invoice to start from. So the next quote I was to generate, for instance, it would look at this box and say, right, what's the next available number? So it would pick up 101 in this instance. If I had it flagged, in this case on the professional level, to convert to sales orders, again, when I generate the quote, it would look at this numbering sequence here, this one. So it would pick up number 38 in my case. Just make sure I set that back while I remember. So in this, our example today, it should pick up number 101 when we save the quote. And that's pretty much all there is to think about with regard to those defaults. So I'll just OK that at the bottom. Right, OK, let's quickly pop back to the slides just for a moment. Next, we're going to start looking at actually entering a product, a quotation. Now, you've got two types of quotations, or two formats are available. You can do it as a product quote, or you can do it as a service quote. So similar to working in the invoicing module, you can do a service invoice or a product invoice, and the layout and the options are going to be pretty much the same if you are familiar with the invoicing area, but I'll try and show you both as well today's session. You've got the invoice number, which is flagged as auto number. Now, what that means is that auto number is that your number won't be allocated to the quotation until you actually save it. So you can't see it until that point. So you're not generate or opening a brand new one. It'll show you it, and it doesn't show you that number straight away. So that's something to be aware of. So if someone's asking for a specific sort of reference number, for instance, just save it, and then it would be added to the end of your list, and then you'll be able to access that again and make changes. We'll pick up on the other tabs down the left-hand side as well as we work through the demo. And something to be aware of, which you're probably aware of already if you've done invoicing or sales order processing, or possibly even purchase order processing before, that you do have special product codes available for any one-off items. So if you want to enter an item against a product quote, for instance, and it's not actually set up as a product record at that point, you've got these special codes available to you. I'll try and pick those up in the demo as well. Right, so let's get stuck into the demo. I'll go back to my desktop and we'll start entering a quote. So quotations, as I mentioned, it's available in all levels of the software. If you can't see that for whatever reason, it means it's either going to be your access levels within the software. So when you log in, you will have what you term access rights or access levels, as we now refer to it as, assigned to your specific logon name. If you are logging in as manager, you will have access to everything. Now, if that is allocated to you as an option and you still can't see it, it means that you've probably just got it hidden. Now, by that, I mean just if you've right-clicked on your toolbar at some point, anywhere on this navigation bar down the left, when you do that, it will bring up a list of the options that your username has access to. So, for instance, quotations, you may have switched it off. There may be others on here, like the diary, for instance. If you've got no intention of using that diary, and to be quite honest, I don't think I've ever come across any user that has used that option. Might find the odd one, but not very many. So if there's an option on there and you think, well, actually, I just want to hide that, I want to declutter that list a little bit, that's where you could right click and say, right, I want to get rid of that option. So if you can't see quotations for whatever reason, just right click, it'll give you a list of the options that are available to you. Just make sure it's ticked, and then we've got it on the navigation bar at that point. Right, let's pop into quotations. Now in quotations, I'm just going to click new, and we'll quickly run through entering one. So you can see the type is grayed out, so it's a quote that we're entering. Now, if you've got that flagged as to convert to a purchase or a sales order on the professional level, it's going to say quote SOP at the top, just so that you know. But makes no difference to the process. We're then going to choose product. So as you can see, I can choose from product or service. Again, if you've done invoicing, I'm sure you're familiar with that. Pop in your date. It's going to pick up today's date by default. If you're finding that's an old date that it's picking up, you often find that. It's probably just because that you're not actually shutting your PC down at the end of the day. So, or you're not closing Sage, you're probably just locking your PC. So your program date is picked up from your PC date when you first open it. So if you don't close Sage down overnight, then you'll probably find it's going to pick up that date. So pop in your date. I'll just use today's date. Choose your account reference. Let's just pause that message. So choose your account reference. I'll just use that first one. Get rid of that as well. Hopefully stop all those messages popping up in my data here. So we'll choose our customer. It'll obviously pull through their name and address at that point as well. Obviously, with it being a quote as well, it might be a brand new customer. So if they're not on your list, you've got that option to click new at the bottom at that point. Set your customer up there and then. They'll then be on the list, and then you'll be able to select them. Now, auto number, we've already mentioned that one. That will change to a specific number once we save it. Expiry date. Now, it doesn't pick that up automatically. It doesn't calculate it automatically. It doesn't look at, say, the payment terms or anything like that within the customer's record. It's something that you will need to pop in. And what I'll do is, actually, I'll just type it in. I'll just change the month. So we'll do a full calendar month from today. Item number, nothing entered yet, so it just says no items. And then we've got the customer order number. So if they give you some sort of order number that they want included, like a reference number, you can pop that on at that point. We then come down, in this case, with it being a product code, we come down to the product codes themselves. So it's just a case of either typing those in or selecting them from your drop down. Again, if it's a brand new item that you're entering a quote for, you've got the option to create a record at that point. So select it. Obviously, if it's an existing one, it's going to pull through things like your description. Quantity, obviously defaults to 1. You can amend that if required. Price will be pulled through as well. Pulls that through from the product record, although that may differ if you've got special prices or price lists set up. And then you've got your net and your VAT on that as well. Well, it would just be a case of simply adding in additional items if required. Now, if you need to amend anything in the background, so for instance, we've got the description, you've got this little arrow icon here. If I click that, it takes me into the edit item line. I could have clicked on the item, the line itself, and then pressed F3 or clicked the icon at the top there. So I need to add maybe additional comments in. I can do that against the item line. I can pop in, amend the quantity in here. I can amend the unit price. I could pop in a discount percentage or a discount amount, and it will then work out the net and the VAT for me. Your nominal code and tax code and department will be pulled through automatically. It'll pick that up from the product record itself. You can override that if required. And then you've got additional line information that you can enter as well. Now, I'm not going to go into discounts and price lists. If you want to find out more about those, we have run those in the past. So there are recordings available for invoice discounts and price lists. So if you want to find out more about them, again, watch the recording. They're very detailed webinars in their own rights, those ones. Now, other than that, we just click OK, and that's that item line entered. Now, I did mention the special product codes as well for one-off items. Now, to access those, you may or may not have them displayed on your list. Now, I haven't got them displayed on my list. I've got that option switched off. But to use the special product codes, I just type S1, S2, S3, or M. And when I type S1 and press the Tab key, it brings up the item line window. Now, by default, S1 will pick up your tax code T1. So it's going to pick that up automatically. You can preset that these days as well for the special product codes. So just be a case of filling that in, including your description, comments, etc. Now, S2, just to explain a little bit about that one, by default, it's exactly the same, but the only difference is the tax code. By default, that's going to pick up T0. Now, I can't amend S2 at this stage, the tax code against it. I would need to go in and amend that behind the scenes within the defaults if I needed to change that. So if S2, for instance, was always, say, maybe an exempt item, I could sort of amend S2 on an ongoing basis. But that's the big difference at this stage. S3, now S3 is only available on the professional level of the software. So it's what would be used for a one-off service item. So if you want to do what we term a bit of mixing and matching, so some are product items, some are service-based items, you might be doing a quote for almost like, I suppose, like parts and labor, like a fitting charge, for instance, or delivery, if you want to show that as a separate item. You could use, that's where you could use an S3. It just gives you more scope on the description and the details. And then finally, the final one to mention is M. Now, M is for an item line message. So if you just want to maybe add additional text on your document, then you can do that. Just appears as a text with no quantity and no unit price. So you can add as many of those as you want. So I've seen some people on invoicing or order processing where they've just, someone's rung them up and says, right, I just want to add this item onto the order or onto the invoice. And they've just added an M line just to say, right, additional items added by such and such a person. And then you put the item lines on themselves. So you just got that additional information. There may be certain conditions that you want to quote relating to a product or a service item that you've added. So it's for extra details only. So I'm just going to get rid of that line. So we'll just F8 to get rid of it. And that will be it done. Margaret, your question, where does the text entered in the line information field show on the finished quotation? I'm assuming you mean this one at the bottom. So what I'll quickly do, I'll put my initials at the beginning so you can see each one. So we'll call that MC comment 1, MC comment 2, and we'll also say MC line info. So we got that attached to this first item now. When we get onto printing a little bit later, we'll see if and where that pulls through. I don't think the line information gets pulled through automatically. It should be a one that you could potentially add to your layout though, but we'll double check. So anyway, that's the basics of entering a quote. Now you do have some additional tabs at the side. So you've got your order tab. So if there's a specific delivery address that you want to enter at this stage, you've got notes fields, you've got customer contact information, which in my instance, it's been pulled through from my customer record. It's picked up my order taken by as well. So that's picked up my username in Sage. And then we've got the analysis fields as well. Now, analysis fields been around for a few years now. Analysis fields, it's just if you want to use it for additional information. Now, when I say if you want to use it, it could be used for anything. You might just want to record extra information in there. It might be certain questions that you ask. You take a quotation, can I just ask where you heard about us if it's a new customer? You might want to track that type of information. And you can change the field names as well. So rather than just being called analysis 1, 2, 3, you can override those, just so you've got a bit of consistency there. You've got your footer. So if you will need to enter carriage information, you want to quote that on the quote itself. Settlement terms will be pulled through automatically from the customer's record. You can override it if needed. You've got your global option. Again, if you're familiar with invoicing, you'll be familiar with these fields. And then you've got your tax analysis breakdown as well. Finally, you've got the payment tab. Again, not going to go into too much detail about this, as it's, again, if you want the more detailed information about it, please do check out the invoicing webinars that we have available. So what I'm going to do at this stage, I'm just going to save it. So nice, easy process. As I mentioned, if you're familiar with invoicing, quotations, nice and simple. Now at this stage, the one I've just entered, caught me out there. I wasn't sure that was today's date, but it is the 7th today. So you can see it's picked up number 101. It's got today's date in that we entered. We've got the expiry date that we entered. It's currently got a status of open. It's got the name of the customer, the amount. Nothing in the printed column or emailed column. And email or print would indicate the setting within the customer's record as do I email documents to that customer or do I print them? So it just pulls that through from the record itself. Now, if I pop into invoices and credits, you'll see that invoice or quotation 101 is on there at the moment. So it's got in the type column, QTE, so indicating it's a quote at this stage. And I can access it here as well. So if I double click it, it'll pull it through for me. And it still shows me at the top that it's a quote, it's a product quote. Now to convert that to an invoice, so let's say the customer wants to proceed with that one, all I would do is pop into quotations, make sure I've got the right one selected, and I can mark it as 1. Now I could also, the customer, maybe it's expired by now. If it reaches the expiry date, then the status is going to change to expired. I could also mark it as lost, so maybe I've gone back to the customer to chase it and think, they've said, oh, no, we found it cheaper elsewhere, or we don't want to proceed, we're not in a position yet to do that. We can also highlight it and flag it as lost. Start filtering them from the list then as well. And of course, if they do want to proceed, we can flag it as 1. Now to flag it as 1, we just highlight it, click the option at the top, mark as 1. Just ask me, are you sure you want to do this? So yes, I do. All you see at this stage on this screen is it changes that status to 1. And if I pop back to invoices and credits, you'll now see that invoice 101, or what was a quote 101, is now flagged as an invoice. Now, I want to quickly mention what I would term as, I wouldn't say it's a common query, but it's a one I come across now and again. So if you've entered a quote quite some time ago, and maybe a customer comes back to you a month later and says, oh yeah, well, we want to proceed with that, it will retain the same number. It doesn't allocate the next invoice number. It will just convert essentially whatever the quote and the number it used at the time, it will convert that and it will use that on your invoice list. So it's quite common when people will, you'll go into quotations, you'll highlight it and then say, right, I want that to be. So if we probably take this as an example, this one here, number 79, if I flag that one as 1, say yes, I want to convert it. I've got that flagged as to an inactive customer. But what it would do for this one, as an example, is I would need to find it on the list. So it would still have the original number. So it doesn't necessarily add it on to the end. So that's something to be aware of. Generally, you'll find people have them sorted in number order. You may get the odd person who sorts in date order, but Otherwise, it's going to be numerical order. So do be aware of that one. So people will say, well, I flagged it as 1 and it's not appearing on my list. And it's because it's using the original number. So it just slots into the position on the list there. Hope that makes sense, that one. Now at this stage, with it being an invoice, just to complete it, if I wanted to update that to the customer's account, I can just highlight it. And as usual, I've got the update ledgers option. I can then just follow that through just as normal. Now, is there any questions on entering a quote at this stage? I'm going to come back to the printing, etc. in just a moment. But if you've got any questions, please, on the entry side of the process that we've just looked at, please let me know. I'll quickly just follow it through exactly the same with a quotation, doing a new one, and just show you what a service would look like, which really is no different. Pop in the amounts. And then once I'm done, I would just save that, and it pretty much works in exactly the same way. Adds it onto your list as and when. You would flag that as won or lost. Now, if you've marked a one as lost, and I'll quickly mention this one. So it's now flagged as lost. And let's say the customer comes back and they've changed their mind. And actually, we do want to proceed with that. Assuming the prices are the same, so if I open that one, I can come back in and amend it, save it if needed. It's still flagged as lost at this stage. But if I needed to, I can reflag that as being open. So flags it as open, and then if needed, I can flag that as won. So again, that process is pretty much the same. Right, no new questions at that point. So what we'll do, I'm just going to pop back to the slides. And I want to pick up on really the final area that I want to look at with you today, which is the final point of a quotation. So using quick print, email. So generating an actual document to send out to the. But really, you've got 3 options, and some of you will be familiar with that as well. Excuse me. So print. In fact, we'll just show you these as well. So when we're going into the print option, it's going to give you the choice of layouts. So it will give you the same choice of layouts as what you're using for, let's say, if you've got it linked to convert to an invoice. So it will give you that same list of layouts for your quotation. Now, you'll be able to flag your favorites so that you're not searching all over trying to find which one you should be using. So nice and easy to flag them. You can edit your layout. We've got recordings on that one as well, if you are interested, how to add logos, bits of text, etc. You can design your own. Not something I would personally recommend designing your own. It's always much easier if you find the one that's close to what you want and then tweak it, make amends to it. So adding your logo to it, for instance. And if you are wanting to go maybe designing your own or even just editing a layout and you don't want to do it yourself, we do have a report design service as available as well. If you're interested, you would just get in touch with our support team for that one. Right, now I'll quickly explain the quick print and email options to you and hopefully pick up on Margaret's query from earlier as well. So let's go back to my screen. We're just going to quickly pick up on this one first of all. So 1 or 2, it's currently flagged as open. I've got the 3 options available at the top here. Let's start with print. So when we go into the print option, initially, you're not going to have anything flagged as a favorite unless you've used the invoicing ledger, for instance. So you would pop into layouts and you would go down and try to find the one that you want. Which one do you want to use? So if I just pick this one as an example, what I'll do is I'll just preview that one so give you an idea of what that would look like. Now this one was actually, I'll go back to the other one and see if it will let me print that one. because that's the one I added all those extra details onto. Let's try that one. So you'll see in this instance, this specific layout that I've just selected, and there are loads to choose from. Each of them will show you something a little bit different. So this specific one has pulled through the comment lines that I entered. Hasn't pulled through that line information that was mentioned earlier, but it should be possible to add that information onto the layout, so it pulls it through automatically if required. So that would just be a data field that you could add on to the design of your layout if needed. Now, with regard to the other options, email and quick print, these are designed so it's like a one-click process. So if I just highlight that one as an example, that one at the bottom here, and click quick print, first time you select it, either quick print or email, it should prompt you. A default print layout is not being set up. Do you wish to do this now? So if I click yes, and then it would say, right, which one do you want to use going forward? So I'll just choose the layout I want to use. Let's just say this one at the top, click OK, and that would be it done. Now going forward, what it would mean is when I select that and then click quick print, I don't need to browse for a layout and confirm my print settings or anything like that. So the idea is you highlight it, you click quick print, it's one click to generate that. Similar for email as well. So first time I select it, tells me a default email layout is not being set up. Do you wish to do this? So if I click yes, and I'll just choose, I'll choose that one. I think it looks like it's a one I've tweaked to myself. And again, it tells me that's been successfully output to email. Now, if you haven't emailed documents yet, or you're still in the process of trying to set that up, there's a few recorded webinars on emailing invoices, which I would encourage you to have a look at. So the same principles would apply if you want to email out statements or sales orders or purchase orders or quotations or invoices. So it's pretty much the same settings that you have available. So we just OK that. So the idea with this, again, is that we can select it, click email, and because I've now got a default layout associated with that, it will pick that up automatically. Now, I just had a question again. I was just about to come on to that one. Question is, if you've assigned a layout to quick print and then you wanted to change at a later stage, can this be done? The answer to that one is yes, you can. You can do it for quick print or email. All you would do is go back into settings, invoice and order defaults, or remember if you're in essentials, it's just called invoice defaults. And then you've got your quick print and your email options at the top. So in this case, quotations. So I just click browse and I'm back to where I selected it in the first place. So I'll find the one I was after. So let's say I wanted to use that one as well, just as an example. I can easily do that, and that's the same for email as well. So you've got the quotations options on there. Obviously, if you're on the professional level, it's going to be that option if you've chosen to convert it to a sales order. So that's where you change it if needed. Right, now quick question we had from Sue as well. Sue was asking, sometimes VAT shows on a European order in certain places, T0 appears. How can you ensure that T0 is in all of the correct fields? So if you wanted to use a specific tax code, what you need to do is pop into your customer record, and within your customer's record, you've got a defaults option, and it's this option here. So you would specify your tax code, whatever you want that to be for that specific customer. And then you would say, use the default tax code for sales. So if, as an example, let's say I set that to T5, just as an example, and I want it to use that rather than the one assigned to the product record, I set it within the customer record, and then I tick this box to say, right, I want you to use this as the default. So I save that, and then go back into the likes of a quotation. I'll choose that customer, and then we'll choose a product. Now I'm hoping it could gonna create a liar out of me, but it has picked it up. But why has it got VAT calculated? That will be my question. I'll need to check that one. Maybe I've got something spurious in my data. I'll double check that. But that's all you should need to do there, Sue. So just into your product customer record. Let me do that one again. So into your customer record, and then on the defaults, choose the tax code for that specific customer. So if they are, say, based within Europe, for instance, and you want to specify a specific tax code, so specify it there, tick the checkbox, and that should override it. So it should override anything that you've got set within the customer's record. Within the product record itself. That would go for the likes of invoicing, sales order processing as well. You've got a similar option if anyone's on a professional level and uses a similar option for purchase orders. Sarah, you were just asking there, can you convert a quote into multiple invoices? No, you can't. Now, the only way you could potentially do that, and I say potentially, is if you're on the professional level, you convert that quote into a sales order. From a sales order, you can dispatch in parts. So when you dispatch in parts, so let's say the quote was for 5 different items, you create a sales order, you dispatch 2 of them, that would create an invoice for those 2 items. So that would be the only way around that. If you needed to just go direct from a quote to multiple invoices, then you would actually have to enter those separately. That'd be the only way you could do that one. Right, okay. Now, if you've got any more questions, keep them coming. Pop them into the questions panel. Remember, if maybe you weren't on at the start of the session, if you want to submit a question, you just need to click that little icon on your toolbar, the speech bubble containing the question mark, give it a click, and then you'll get that box in the bottom right-hand corner. If you think of anything afterwards, after you've left the webinar as well, have a look in our help center. There's loads of information in there. And of course, our support team's on hand as well, if you need to speak to someone. But if you've got any questions at this stage, pop them in there, and I'll try my best to pick those up or maybe run through another little demo. Just to quickly mention the Help Center as well. Now, if you're on version 29, anywhere within your software when you're working, you've now got the new help option in the top right-hand corner. Or of course, you can just press F1 on your keyboard, but bring up the relevant help relating to whatever it is you're looking at. You can also access help outside of Sage as well, just by opening your browser, going to sage.co.uk/help, and then just need to choose Sage 50 accounts. Loads of information in there, whether it's you want a guide to a particular area, there's mentioned a little bit about webinars, there'll be videos available, and of course, if you've got a question on a particular topic, it will try and guide you to the best route to get in touch with our support team. Depends on your type of query. So do use that, really comprehensive. Some of the upcoming webinars we've got planned in as well. So over the coming month, we're going to be looking at, we are going to be touching on sales and purchase orders. I think we've got them planned in for invoices as well. I think product invoices is this week, and I've got a feeling service invoices is within the next 2 weeks as well. But we've also got sales and purchase orders. They're all very, very similar. So if you've got knowledge of one, it's very easy to adapt to the other as well. Bank reconciliation we're going to be covering. We've got chart of accounts this week on Friday, followed by management reports next Friday. Batch reporting we're going to be picking up on, and also month end. And one of the common queries that we always get as part of month end or year end is, why does my age debtors or age credit reports not agree to my trial balance on my balance sheet? So I'm going to be looking at that one. So that's on the 21st of June, that one. That's going to be our new session for that week. If you are interested, again, developing your knowledge a little bit on the reporting side of the software, then please get yourself signed up for that one. And if you've got any requests going forward, do let us know. You can pop it on the survey as you leave the session, or just reply to any of the webinar emails and that'll come direct to myself. Right, any additional questions? So, quick question that I did miss was from Margaret. Margaret was just asking, are there reports available in the quotations module? There's not specifically a reports option within the quotations module, Margaret. If you wanted to report on them, you would need to do that via the module that it's linked to. So either the invoicing module or the sales order module, where they will appear. You may find you need to tweak them as well, those reports, just to pick up exactly what you're after. But again, our support team could assist you with that type of thing. I think that was the only other outstanding question that we had. Right, so on that note, I think we'll wrap up the webinar at that point. Again, if you think of anything afterwards, either get in touch with our support team, do check out the information in the Help Centre because it is very comprehensive. I'm going to quickly thank you for your time as well. Appreciate you coming along, being quite a much smaller session, so it gives me a chance to pick up the questions in a bit more detail and run through those extra demos here and there. There'll be a little survey pop up just as normal as you leave the webinar today. So if you can take a minute to pop some feedback on that, share your thoughts, ideas, suggestions for topics that you'd like to see covered going forward. We get loads of those. We will be in touch if we are running those topics as well. If we decide to run it, or maybe we've already run one and you're just not aware of it, we'll be in touch with you about that. Follow-up email should be with you in round about 2 hours' time. Hopefully that will give me a chance to get the recording of today's session up on YouTube, and we'll then be able to share the link with you, so watch out for that as well. It'll also include the links so that you can register for other webinars that we've got planned in. So if any of the upcoming sessions that were on my list there, if they caught your eye and you think, well, I might like to attend that one, then please get yourself registered. If you've missed any sessions or you miss any of the sessions going forwards, we always make the recordings available, so there'll be a link included on your follow-up email as well. Right, we'll end the webinar at that point. Once again, many thanks for coming along. Take care, stay safe, and hopefully I'll see you on some future sessions soon. Many thanks.